Gamers, tier lists are dumb, but they get views, so we're gonna do one anyways. But before we actually hop into my tier list and what I'm actually doing different with my tier list than what's done on a lot of other websites, I say a lot of other websites, I mean Pridewin. I'm going to tell you how I'm differentiating mine from Pridewin here in a second, but I kind of want to talk about Pridewin's tier list and give my opinion on it and why I don't think it's the best tier list. I don't think anyone's tier list is the best tier list. Keep that in mind. I think everyone's tier list are pretty subjective. Even though there is like meta talk and like numbers involved with it, I still think that each tier list is subjective. So keep that in mind when watching my tier list later on. But let's hop on Pridewin's website and I'm going to talk about kind of my problems with this tier list. So let's go ahead and first talk about the criteria of their tier list. And that's going to be manual play using optimal teams and compositions, characters level 80. All major traces unlocked and skills upgraded to level 8. Characters upgraded with a level 80 light cone, 4-star and 5-star, but only those available to free-to-play players. Characters equipped with 5-star upgraded gear with optimal main and substats. Eidolon level 0 for 5-star characters and Eidolon level 0 to 6 for 4-star characters. Support characters while receiving ratings in all three categories, single target, blast, AoE, are rated accordingly to how much they help the team with one unified rating. And then we have what actually affects the rating here, and that's going to be flexibility, how characters perform in various scenarios, single target, blast, AoE, the amount of investment required for each character to feel good while playing it, reliance on specific teammates to perform well, damage output for DPS, the impact of debuffs and buffs for the team, the ease of keeping the team alive for sustain. I think the criteria and what affects the rating is really good here. The couple things I don't agree with this is I don't like that you have single target, blast, and AoE ratings for each one of the characters. I feel like it gets really jumbled up, especially for newer players coming to the game, and I think just players that are, I guess, more uninformed than us meta slaves here. I think this can send a wrong message potentially, and on top of this, what's not stated in the rating and how they rate it here is it's also based off of the current MOC. So if a character or typing is not good for a current MOC, that's going to knock the ranking down, and I don't like that either. I don't like that it's based off of current MOC, because MOC is always going to change depending on what the featured 5-stars are. If you have characters coming out to the game, say like Jing Liu right now, obviously most of the characters are going to be weak to fire and ice because Jing Liu and Topaz are in the game. If you have someone like Argenti coming out, obviously his MOC is probably going to have more enemies for physical weakness, and I'm going to have a video talking about when to actually build characters, but that's going to be for a whole separate video. If you want to see that video, leave a like on this video and subscribe maybe too. But that's the point I'm getting at. This tier list always changes and updates depending on the current MOC version. So that brings me to my tier list. What am I doing different with my tier list? So my tier list is going to have basically the same criteria, or that's how I'm grading it. It's not going to be based off the current MOC. It's going to be general use case. So what overall are these characters better in? I'm also not doing it based off of E0 or E6. We're going to do it based off of E3 because I feel like E6 can be unfair because a lot of free-to-play players probably don't have a lot of E6 characters, nor do free-to-play players, unless you're just starting out, have E0 characters. I feel like E3 is a solid middle ground. I was going to go E4 because that gives an extra ability, but I want this to be as accurate as possible, so E1, E2 gives you your first two abilities with Eidolons, and that's what we're really going to be judging off of, because I feel like that's a really free-to-play friendly approach to this versus scaling them off of E0, right? Because I feel like a lot of 4-star characters get a lot of value from those E1s and E2s where some don't. So that's how I'm going to be grading my tier list today. Of course, all 5-stars will be E0 with none of their signature light cones taken into account here. It's going to be all light cones that you could possibly get through gacha, not like signature light cones or anything like that, and also free-to-play 5-star light cones as well. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and hop into my tier list now, starting off with the DPS category, because I do feel like Pridewin does a really good job of spacing out the characters between damage dealer, debuff, amplifier, sustain. I feel like that is really needed because I think things can get misconstrued when you put all of these characters in the same list together. So let's start off with my DPS tier list first. Also, one other thing I guess I should say about my tier list is I don't like S+ tier. I don't do that. I do S, A, B, C, D. I think that's just the most accurate way to do it. I don't believe in doing S+, SS, SS, SS. I don't believe in that. We're doing S, A, B, C, D. I think that is enough tiers to properly grade these characters. So starting off our tier list, guys, we're just going to go from basically the first to the last tier. Danny first. Danny goes in S tier. I think he is a masterclass as far as damage and DPS is concerned. He definitely goes up here. He deserves a spot in the S tier, but that's going to be a different story for our boy Blade right here. He likes to hurt himself, and I don't like that. And also, obviously, his damage is not anywhere near Danny's damage, so we're going to be throwing him in an A tier. Same thing for Topaz. I don't think Topaz is S tier. I think Topaz is also A tier. She doesn't provide enough single target damage for me to really put her up there. She's more of a follow-up attacker, and I guess supporter of follow-up attackers for your team. I just think she does do decent enough damage, but I do think she's at the end of A tier. I just want to point that out. I think she's at the very end of A tier, maybe high B tier. She's better than B tier in my opinion, but very end of A tier. I couldn't throw her in B tier. And then Jingliu also in S tier as well. She's a master class as far as DPS goes. These are the two best DPS in the game at the moment. We're also going to be rating Argenti, Hanya, and also Hoa Hoa as well. We'll get to them at the end of each one of these sections, just so I can juice some more watch time out of you guys. So yeah, you guys will love those ratings surely. Physical MC, our first D tier. He is not very good. Sussy Shang is a B tier. I think Sussy Shang at E1, that's probably her best eidolon to me. When she doesn't consume a skill point, she becomes a lot more skill point efficient when she is S1. S2 does help out some, but S1 is the biggest one for me. Now hopping into our boy Yan King. Yan King is also a B tier. I don't think that he's on the same level as Zila, because I do think he relies on a lot more to do this big damage, because if he gets hit, it's kind of OV for him. So if he's getting hit, or taking damage really, or taking any type of HP, it's just kind of OV for him, and that's why he's going in the B tier. Not that he does like super bad damage, just he relies on a lot to actually do that damage. Now, the same thing can also be said for Jing Yuan. Jing Yuan requires a lot to do high damage. I do think, though, that he is at the top of B tier, so we're going to be putting him at the top of B tier, right in front of my boy Yan King. Now, QQ is going to be at the end of B tier. QQ really doesn't get good until E4. That's why I kind of did this only to E3. Like, a couple characters on this list get really good buffs at E4, but we're going to cut it in half in the middle between E6 and E0, so E3 is the way we go this video. If she was E6, then she would be higher on this list, but E3, we're going to put her in B tier. Hook, going to be the same exact way. We're going to be throwing Hook in the B tier as well. I'll reorganize this B tier category whenever I'm done with it. And then we have Clara. I think Clara sits also in the B tier as well with Jing Yuan. I think it's really hard to get enemies to actually hit her, especially if you have a tank Yoon on your team. Then obviously that's where all your damage is going to be going. Hopping into another one of our 4 stars here, which is going to be Danny, the Zoe boy Danny. He's going to C tier. Don't hate me for it. He's going to C tier. He's not that good. He's going into C tier. But Himiko is a different story. Himiko, I'll be putting her in the B tier as well, because I don't think she deserves C tier, because she is definitely better than the characters in C tier. She's definitely better than Danny, but I don't think she's as good as the likes of Blade. I really don't think she's even as good as the likes of Jing Yuan right now. So for that matter, we're throwing her in the B tier. Now Kafka is going straight to the A tier. Kafka is great. Kafka is amazing, and I love our mommy Kafka. Just not enough damage to really put her up there in the S tier with Danny and Jingliu, which honestly no one's getting close to that. Even your mommy Zila's not getting up there. Next, Arlon. Usually I see Arlon in D tier. I think Arlon's pretty alright. I think he's better than a D tier, so I'll be putting him in the C tier because I have faith in my boy Arlon, okay? I have faith in him. Now, as far as Herta goes, Herta, unfortunately, is going to the D tier. Now, this could be me not having enough testing with her and only testing her when the game first came out. She could have gotten a lot better, but from my knowledge right now, she is still a D tier character. Of course, there's scenarios where she does do good, especially like the Planar event right now. I saw her hitting for like 1,000,000 damage on her follow-up attack or ultimate. So, I mean, of course, in that use case, she is good, but overall, she's D tier. Now time to talk about your mommy Zila. Your mommy Zila is going to A tier. Yeah, I think she's A tier. I think she's in the middle of A tier probably. So yeah, that's where she's getting rated. Anyways, on to Serval next. Serval, I think, is another C tier unit. I don't think she's that good. I think a lot of the B tier units do outclass her in a lot of different ways. Now finally, we're gonna be on to Argenti, and you guys might not like my opinion on this. I don't think Argenti when he comes out is gonna be S tier. I think he will be A tier. I think he'll probably be somewhere in the middle of A tier if I had to guess. So we're going to be putting him in A tier for now. He does really, really high, like, single target damage. One of the highest, I think the highest single target damage in the game. But that's when there is one enemy on the field. He has randomness to his kit, just like Jing Yuan does with his Lightning Lord. So I feel like that could cut you over a bit. Also, his energy cost is abysmally high. I know you're getting energy back from using skills and his talent and stuff like that, but most of your damage is going to be coming from the ult. Obviously, that's where most of your damage is coming from. It's super high investment, super high cost to use that ultimate. And then also B, P is going to be using his skill every single turn, and I really don't think the skill's going to do that much damage. I think it's going to be on par with Jingyuan's skill, so for that, I think we throw him here. The reason he's not down there with Jingyuan is because Jingyuan relies on the Lightning Lord to do all of his damage. He relies on a separate entity to do it, where he can kind of just do it whenever he wants. So, yeah, big difference there. Now, this is going to be my final list here of all the characters, kind of like in their ordered list here. I'm not going to go over it. You guys can look at it. Tell me what your thoughts are in the comments down below. But now, we're going to be hopping into our debuffer / buffer tier characters, so yeah, subscribe if you haven't already. Figure I should plug that in this little intermission here. Alright, so hopping into our debuffer / buffer category, we're going to be throwing Luca down in the C tier. I think he is probably the worst buffer / debuffer in the game. He becomes decent at E6, a little bit better, probably B tier at E6. He can provide pretty good damage there, so yeah, for now, Luca I think is probably the worst in the game as far as debuff / buff goes. Next is going to be Gwen, which I think is a B tier. The reason I put Gwen here is I honestly thought she was going to be a lot better when she came out. I did some testing with her. She wasn't as good as I thought she was, but I didn't think she was the worst. I think she's one of the better B tier characters on this list, so take that for what you will. Yukong goes right behind her, and the reason I put Yukong here is because Yukong is really not that good or really that consistent until you get her to E6. Once you get her E6, she becomes a lot more consistent. I think her buff helps out a lot more, but the fact that it only lasts for 2 of your other players' turns, and she can become really skill point hungry without that E6. And finally here, we're going to be putting Mr. Katsuki Sampo, because I couldn't put Katsuki Sampo on the same level as Danny, because I think Sampo, this is not a DPS conversation, I just think in terms of usability, Sampo is better than Danny, and looking at the other tier list, I think that Sampo is better than Danny in just about every single way. Maybe not just raw damage numbers, but as far as breaking enemy shield and providing some extra assistance to the team, I put him here. Now, he is pretty niche because he only affects dot damage, so he is going to be lower and not higher on this list. If he did something more, then maybe he'd be higher, but yeah, he's still good in my opinion, so we're going to be putting him in the B tier, probably the bottom of B tier. Now, on to A tier. Papa Welt's going to be going to the A tier. Papa Welt, pretty good. I see a lot of tier lists put him lower. I think Welt is still really good, imprisoning the enemies and just slowing them down altogether and not making them move. I think Welt is a really good option to choose. He can also be really good as far as DPS and damage output if you were lucky enough to get him E1. Of course, we're not taking that into account here. I think if we did, he would be higher on the A list category. I still think he's A tier without the E1, but he just is higher up there for me on the A tier with that E1. So, with that being said, our boy Welt staying at A tier. Now, next is going to be Silverwolf. Silverwolf S tier. Changes enemy typings, defense shred, really good. I think Pela could be better in certain circumstances. I think overall, she provides a more broader help to your account than Pela does. So for that case, we're putting Silverwolf up here in the S tier. Now Asta. Asta at E1, E2, her Eidolons are really helpful. We're throwing her in A tier. I think for me, she's probably the top of A tier. She's super good. Provides speed, provides attack, and she shreds enemy shields as well. So basically, you have Sampo, which breaks enemy shield and only affects dot damage, and then she gives buffs for the whole team, which are a lot better buffs, and also shreds enemy shield. So top of A tier, and also her Eidolons as well, going E1, E2 is a lot better than I would say Sampo's E1, E2 is. So for that case, A tier for me, top of A tier. Bronya next. Bronya, top of S tier. I think nothing more needs to be said there. She's really good. And I think, you know, Pela goes middle of A tier here. I think she provides great defense shred to all enemies with her ultimate move. The only thing that she's missing that I think Asta has on her is her skill is kind of lackluster. So for that reason, we're putting her in the middle of A tier. Next is going to be Ting Yun. Ting Yun, E1, E2. Probably one of the best support units in the game. She's a secret 5-star. She's hidden in disguise. Her ultimate's really good. Her skill's really good, especially if you can get that speed buff, put Dance on her. You can watch Gotcha's Max build guide for that, or even my build guide on Ting Yun for that matter. She is super pog, super good, and I think if you build her the right way, she can be really good for your account. Now, finally, for the last character on this list here, Hanya. Let's talk about Hanya. I think Hanya will beat out Asta as far as like what she can do for your account and what she can do for your team. I think she will be the new top of A tier because this video is obviously being made before they come out. I think Hanya is going to be top of A tier for now. I think that her skill point generation is really big. I think the main problem she has is her ultimate only targeting one ally. And I think that is a point of contention for me, with it only targeting one ally. Of course, if you have one DPS on the team, you would help that DPS out, but I like the fact of speeding the whole team up with Asa's ultimate versus just speeding one ally up with Hanya's ultimate. But skill point generation is really big, and I think that's what sets her aside from everyone else, because you can make your team a lot more SP efficient with her. And that's basically going to do it for our debuffer / buffer category. And now let's go ahead and move on to our final category now, which is all of our sustain characters. And I know you guys are going to be mad at the rating I give Hua Hua or HH, but let's go ahead and start off the list here. I think March 7th is in the C tier. She's one of the worst characters in the game for sustain. Not saying she's bad by any means, because she can definitely be used, and I think she's great in a lot of scenarios. She's a good sustain, honestly, but I mean, compared to the other one, she's just not as good. Now, Gepard are going to be our first A tier. I don't think he's the top of the top anymore. I think that spot's reserved to, obviously, the two we're going to talk about in a second here, but Gepard's really good. Provides shield for the team, but can't really stop debuffs from happening, nor can he heal the team or do any damage mitigation, but that's kind of what the shield does. If you break the shield though, then it's kind of OV for you, right? Next is going to be Natasha. Natasha goes to the C tier. I think just about every healer in the game outclasses her. Not to say Natasha's bad, because Natasha is still good in my opinion. She's just not as good as the other ones. Now, Fu Xuan going to be our first S tier. Fu Xuan, I think, is a master class in what she does. She provides a lot of assistance to your account, and she is really super good. S tier character here. Next is going to be Locha. Locha also goes up here with the greats. Locha, best healer in the game. I don't think that's being touched for a while. Next is going to be Lynx. I think Lynx is also an A tier character. I think Lynx is super good. I think she provides, you know, curing one debuff from the whole team on ult. Also just healing with skill, healing with ult, giving extra healing every single turn, removing debuffs, increasing match HP, increasing aggro. Her kit does a lot, and I think she is really good. Especially if you can get her into like that E1, E2 range, I think she becomes even better. I think E2 for her is muy perfecto, as my Italian heritage would call it. Now, Bailu, I think Bailu is B tier. I do think Lynx is better than Bailu. Bailu does have her chances where she shines, and I still use Bailu on my account over my Lynx. Then maybe that's just because I haven't really built my Lynx up that much. But I think Bailu is still a fine option to run. She just doesn't provide like any type of debuff, taking off debuffs or anything like that, which kind of hinder her kit in my opinion. Now, next is going to be Fire MC. Fire MC also goes down here into the C category with the rest of our supports here. That's all I can really say about that. And finally, Hua Hua. Where'd she go? I think she goes top of A tier. I don't think she's S tier. Now guys, before you light me up in the comments down below saying, Hua Hua's gonna be so good, I think she's going to be great. I think she's going to be great. She provides energy attack for the whole team. I think the problem's going to be healing, because she is going to be pretty SP negative, because the only heal you get from her is when using your skill, and obviously from her talent too. But I think the majority of that healing is coming from the skill. You really don't get healed that much from the talent itself. It'll help you out a little bit, but overall, and you have to wait for your turn as well. So if your allies aren't fast, then that's kind of down bedge. So that's my opinion on why she's down here. I think that your sustain characters should be SP positive, because your buffers and your attackers or debuffers are the ones that are supposed to be using most of your skill points, and her relying on her skill to actually heal the team at all is pretty, I don't like it in my opinion, right? Fu Xuan's fine, because Fu Xuan can use her ability. She mitigates damage for a couple of turns, and then you reuse it every couple of turns, so she does end up being SP positive, but I think it works the same way with Hua Hua, right? But it's healing instead of damage mitigation, and her ultimate, unlike Fu Xuan's ultimate, doesn't give healing. So you're going to have to use the skill to keep topping up, which means more SP inefficient players on your team, more SP inefficiency all around. In my opinion, she's going to be top of A tier. I think she'd be better than Lynx for sure. As far as healing goes, I think she's better than Gepard, because she offers more than Gepard can offer. But overall, I think she does deserve to be here. Anyways, guys, this might be a longer video. I don't know. Appreciate you guys watching the video. It'll be a quick outro. Bye, guys. See you later. Subscribe if you haven't already. We're going to have a couple more videos coming out this week. And yeah, see you gamers later. Hello.